will you join with me in prayer? May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words you hear be captured by your soul and enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. I want to begin today's reflection with a disclaimer, or whatever it is they call it on television when they confess their own personal stake in what they're saying. I want to say that I am offering this reflection with the possibility that I'm the one who needs to hear it most. But I do need to hear it. And you can listen in if you like, in case there's something in what I intend to say that you might need to hear as well. This may sound to you as a strange way of preaching to yourself, but when I was in seminary, we were often reminded that when we were telling the congregation how they should act and think and what they should do, just remember there's one finger pointed at them and 3 fingers pointed back at you. So this morning I want to muse about some of the struggles I've been having with my own faith right now in these last few months. And I want to do it publicly because I believe I need the support of others. Perhaps we all do. Perhaps getting ourselves into a healthy spiritual state is a community activity more than it is an individual one. Perhaps we need each other. So I start off by saying that I've shared with you before that keeping spiritual disciplines as a way of growing my spiritual life has been rather hit and miss for me. I admire people like Jim Hanna who seem to be able to keep to a regularly disciplined spiritual life, but that's not me. But a few months ago I received an email from Joan Chittister inviting me back into her monthly devotional pamphlets called The Monastic Way. Chittister is a Benedictine sister in her early 80s. She's an advocate of justice, peace, and equality. She's also a visionary spiritual voice and a gifted spiritual guide. For about 3 years, I had been inspired by the monthly devotional pamphlet that she produced. And then, as I often do, I'd let it lapse. I decided to take up her offer to reconnect, and the December issue was the first issue that I received. I was really surprised as I went through the daily readings of September at how strident and angry many of them seemed to be. I didn't remember that from before. I had remembered Chittister's comments as wise and profound, calling me to a deep inner reflection. This time, they seemed to be filled with anger at a changing political climate where power and corruption were increasingly putting the innocent and the vulnerable at risk all around the world. Each monthly pamphlet has a painting or a drawing on the front cover, and for December, the painting that was there was of 4 churchwomen of El Salvador who lived among the rural poor of El Salvador, risking their lives by working against the military dictatorship, helping peasants free the death squads, working with children, and demanding prisoners be released, until those 4 women were kidnapped, tortured, and killed by the military. As I thought about it, these daily readings were commonly a call to action and commitment. And I began to wonder if the anger I was sensing was Chittister's anger or mine. I came in touch with a sense of my pessimism about the direction that the world is going in, and the feeling that I was helpless to do anything about it. Jim Taylor kind of summed up my mood for me in his last column of 2018. He said, Climate change, hurricanes, floods, droughts, volcanoes, tidal waves, crashing stock markets, meaningless mass murders, price gouging pharmaceutical companies, trade wars, toxic chemicals, crumbling infrastructure, refugees, terrorists, nuclear rearmament, computer hackers. The news is as bleak as a winter day. The world, it would seem, is going to hell in a handcart. Jim said that perhaps he was feeling the death of optimism. Perhaps that's what I was feeling too. And it surprised me, because I thought that optimism was not how I'd been facing the world. In many of the reflections that I've been sharing with you, I've been saying that we need to face the future grounded in hope rather than in optimism. In a hope that great love and compassion will finally overcome the feelings of hatred and fear that seem to be driving society nowadays. Curiously enough, Jim finished his column quoting me and my belief that the essence of the earth is healing and wholeness. The belief that that is the essence of humanity as well. Being grounded in a community, in love and compassion, and seeing that as a future of creation and of humanity. That's so much stronger than a vague but ungrounded optimism for the future. But I don't think I was being grounded. So where do I think I've gone off the rails? How did I get myself into that state? Why have I lost touch with what I myself have been advocating? I think that is primarily a problem of where I have focused my time and my thoughts. First of all, I search for the news that fuels my pessimism. The latest tweets from President Trump, the up-to-the-minute news of the Brexit fiasco, the current reports coming out of Ontario from Premier Ford. If that is where I focus my time and my thinking, no wonder I get angry. There are lots of news items about people thinking about and striving for goodness and love. I've seen the headlines, for instance, about the NATO government's rescue of the White Helmets, Syria's famous civilian emergency first responders who were runners-up last year for the Nobel Peace Prize. I've seen the headlines about how they were rescued. I didn't bother to read the story. The January edition of the Monastic Way focuses on listening with the ear of your heart. It includes such wisdom as, all the great saints spent their lives to hear the stories of the sad and lonely, the forgotten, and the accused. It is this kind of loaves and fishes that we are able to give the starving, to listen, if only we will. And she also says, if there is any ministry on earth worth being part of, it's the ministry of those who can hear a broken heart. Fixing a problem is a final act of mercy. Understanding it is the first. So I say to myself, why am I giving my time and energy to people who are angry and filled with hatred and who lead me to feel the same? Chittister is right. If I see the future of creation and humanity to lie in healing and wholeness, I need to spend my time listening to the voices that cry out for that. I need to spend my time heeding the voices that might be pointing the way ahead to accomplishing healing and wholeness in the world. Fixing the problem is the final act of mercy. Hearing it clearly is the beginning. Secondly, Jim Hanna has done some preliminary work on the Sundays of Epiphany, and he was using as his theme, No Ordinary Time, that book I referred to earlier by Jan Phillips. I've decided that for the Sundays of January, where I am leading worship, I will continue to use the format Jim was planning. And that took me to Jan's book, which I must confess I haven't yet read. In her introduction, she writes, "We are the myth makers and co-creators of the 21st century, the prophets and the writers of the sacred texts. Growing up spiritually is a requirement of this hour. This book is a call to mindfulness, a reminder that evolutionary action begins with stillness, that visionary ideas arise from spiritual practice. It is a book for people conscious of their power and ready to co-create new sacraments and ceremonies that celebrate the divine dwelling within us. It is a handbook for people committed to justice, peacemaking, and spiritual integrity, who are eager to evolve themselves spiritually and creatively." That seems to offer a path away from the pessimism I've been talking about. As I said, Jim wanted to do the book study on ordinary time, and so, as I announced earlier, we'll go ahead with that study later this month. It seems an appropriate time. For me, a group study with the group together is the best way to approach the issue that I need to deal with personally. You may not want to participate in the group. For you, it might be helpful just to read the book as a personal devotional study of your own. So, there are my New Year's resolutions. I'm announcing them publicly in the hope that this may ensure that I keep them. And you can remind me if you think I'm not. And a way of connecting with all who are on the same journey that I'm on.